Hey guys, so let's talk today about a brand new SF release from Saga Press, Star's End by Cassandra Rose Clarke. This is a space opera set in our own distant future, the 40th century, with a planetary system that's been fairly recently terraformed by the corporation that now runs it, a collection of 4 moons nicknamed the Four Sisters. This is a thoughtful, well-crafted, steadily plotted study of the family behind that corporation. I hadn't known exactly what to expect going into this, but I was blown away by pretty much every aspect of how the author handled this story. The characters, the world building, the way in which she revealed information to the reader, and in general, the atmosphere of the whole thing, which had me truly immersed from beginning to end, swept up in a foreboding that becomes increasingly more present as the story unfolds. Akikio, Cataquil, Amana, and Kila, the terraformed moons that make up the Four Sisters, orbit a gas giant called Coromina, named for the man and the corporation that made them habitable. Philip Coromina is the determined, headstrong, callous, self-interested CEO of the Coromina Group, a company that does everything from weapons manufacturing to terraforming planets, of course, to genetics, to really everything else you can think of, both mundane and specialized, because it's also the ruling government within which everyone else is a citizen employee. This is a structure that seemingly suits the Four Sisters, a corpocracy that those living within it both sustain by working for it and benefit from by also being the customers that it creates these things for, all of which the Coromina Group profits off of both in power and wealth. Philip Coromina, the CEO, has lived now, thanks to the rejuvenation treatments he's taken most of his life, and that he's normalized amongst the higher-ups in his company for 300 years, and is, like I said, the founding father of the Four Sisters, literally guiding from beginning to end the process of making it suitable for humanity. He's also the father of 4 real sisters, 4 daughters, whom he's had fairly late in his life. Esme, the eldest, was born from a quick affair between Philip and a military woman whom had no choice but to leave the newborn baby with its father. The other 3, all Esme's half-sisters, were born from the same mother, Philip's eventual wife, Isabel. Daphne and Adrian are twins, alike and unalike in many ways that you discover as the story progresses, and Isabel, named for their mother, whose whimsical and playful nature is disrupted over the years by a growing detachment and a number of odd disappearances that she cannot explain. Esme's sisters have become estranged from their father Philip and from Esme herself over the last decade and a half due to some mysterious circumstances we are not initially privy to, but we come to learn right at the beginning, right when Esme does, that Philip Coromina is finally dying and does not have long to live. He's caught a disease that takes those who are afflicted by it quickly, and thus must ask Esme for a few dying wishes before he inevitably passes. First, that she step up as the new CEO of the Coromina Group, a position she's been raised to eventually take all her life. And second, that she find and bring her sisters home so that he can see them in person one last time, a task that seems both impossible and not nearly as altruistic on her father's part as he may make it seem to Esme. She's got a plan for the former, something in the works for her family's corporation that could change its direction entirely, but seems at a bit of a loss for the latter, as she's not even sure where her sisters are or how to get them to talk to her. Slowly revealed to us as the story progresses is what happened between them all to sow such animosity back on their old family estate, Star's End, while simultaneously we see some of the power play that's affected the Four Sisters over the years, and especially now that Philip Coromina may be passing the torch. There's corporate war, rebellion in the minds of some, mysterious information leaks, a deadly flu outbreak, experimental surgeries, sentient artificially grown human soldiers, and the somewhat sinister presence of something called the Radiance, which is only ever really named and hinted at towards the beginning, but seems to play a role in some things Esme's been investigating. This is an incredibly well-balanced, evenly told family drama with a blend of creative science fiction and space opera elements that altogether make the story and the characters we follow both compelling and interesting to read about. While first and foremost character-driven, the SF here is not at all watered down or second thought in any way. What truly shapes the story and its cast are the technologies, the system of government, the possibilities, the innovation, the way of life that is so far from our own, and the downsides that this existence on these terraformed moons run by this corpocracy can have on its people. Philip, while primarily a sort of antagonist, especially to his 4 daughters and to the system as a whole, is a complex and richly drawn character, as some things about him are left up in the air and for the reader to decide. He's this guy who's like 300 years old that suddenly starts to have daughters after a couple centuries of life, whom only marries once, Isabel, the mother of 3 of his daughters, and whom obviously has had some pretty big ambitions throughout his life, though his intentions are sometimes iffy or hard to read or downright careless. We're not spoon-fed how to feel about him, as we're given these moments of both what feels like absolute clarity when it comes to who he is, and what feels like ambiguity in how and why he does what he does. We're never really sure what he actually feels towards either his family or his corporation, especially through the lens of Esme, who finds herself both understanding him and hating him in equal measure at differing moments. And Esme herself is a fantastically written character, fully realized and nuanced all throughout. We're initially given a quick look at what is present day for her father dying, and her sisters unheard from, but then almost immediately thrown into the past as the story of what's led up to the situation with her fathers and her sisters unfolds, and we get a better sense of who they all are and what they've been through. It's such an interesting dynamic because the present is written in third person and the past is written in first person, and the past sections are longer, as if that's the actual story, given more importance than the present. I'm generally not a fan of constant flashbacks, but with this it works so well, and as that past story progresses, we get to see all that's happened to these 4 sisters and what has taken them to where they are in the present day. Esme is easily the most developed of them all, though, as we read from her perspective, and in some ways I wish we had gotten a little bit more of the other sisters, as though they are also complexly written people, our understanding of them is limited. But in a way, that also works quite well because Esme's always had this sort of disconnect from her half-sisters. They're not only from different mothers, but they're all fairly far apart in age. So often, Esme was left out of the things they did together. There's this language the other 3 speak to one another that only they seem to understand, this sense of camaraderie she's not a part of, and it all creates this barrier between her and them, and the reader feels that. I felt so much of what Esme felt because of how well she's portrayed. She's got this constant frustration towards her father and his corporation, but she's also somewhat complacent in her role within the company. She's both unsure of what she wants and determined to be better than her upbringing. She's focused and driven, but not selfish. She's emotionally withdrawn, but not at all unfeeling. She's not hesitant to speak up for herself, to take action, to take control, but she's not the kind of person to make anyone's life harder if she can avoid it. You never quite know how far she'll go in any given situation, whether she'll hold her tongue or take charge, but you always come to have an understanding of why she does what she does as she's living through any given circumstance. She cares deeply for her sisters, but doesn't always quite know how to approach that feeling, and the story we see between them all shows what she's willing to do for them and the mistakes she's made in regards to them. There's just a lot of mystery and intrigue here, a lot kept from us, but it never really feels cheap or unwarranted because there's so much more to the flashback story than the present day. What we don't know about the situation in the present is even more interesting because we're slowly learning more and more about what led up to it as the book goes on. And it's super rewarding to have it unfold in that way. Cassandra Rose Clarke doesn't withhold certain things from us at the beginning before we jump back to the past. She references things that aren't contextualized until later on. So a lot of the time, understanding just kind of dawns on you as you're reading from the elongated flashbacks. You're seeing for yourself the cause of what's eventually going to happen. And at times, it becomes seriously intense to the point where you want it to go any other way. You see what's coming and you want to change it, but you can't, and you know you can't, and it's impossible to put down because of how inevitable the outcomes of particular scenes might be. You care for Esme and her family, and you want things to go differently for them, but you know where they end up, and it gets to you how you already know these things and can't do anything about it. This overall was a bit of a surprise for me how much I enjoyed this, and I'd love to see more people read it. If you're looking for a well-written, compelling space opera story with great characters and a lot of really cool SF ideas that I can't even touch on as to not spoil anything for you, I highly suggest you pick this up and give it a try. I've not seen it mentioned much, but I think there are a lot of people out there who'd really enjoy and appreciate the story as much as I did. I don't know whether or not this is a start to a series, or if there will be more set on these worlds, or if this is a complete standalone, but I would absolutely read more without hesitation. I'm sold on this story, this setup, the characters, and this author's writing, which was both thoughtful and evocative, but not overtly so. If you've come across this and have read it, I'd love to hear your thoughts. If I've gotten you interested in reading it, I hope that you'll pick it up and let me know what you think of it when you're done. I'd love to see this get a wider audience. I do think that's where I'm going to leave it off for now, but just know that I highly approve and very much enjoy this a lot. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you later with more.